That's the first bridge over the Iowa River, Burlington Street. That's the dam at Burlington Street. They put that in after the one at the Terrell Dam was taken out. Well, one thing I did want to tell you, Walter Terrell was quite mighty, particularly in his old age. His daughter graduated from the University College of Law in Calico, and 18 years after he died, his daughter was going through some of his effects out there at that particular house, and he had a memo there that he buried gold pieces over in the city park. And you go to the big oak at such a point, go 2 rods north, 1 rod east, a half a rod north again, and you dig down and you'll find the gold pieces. And they did, and they found the gold pieces. And then they later sold at City Park to the city 70 7/10 acres for $10,000. That was 1906, and that's when they built the first Park Bridge. Oh, this bridge was built in 1860. That's the first free bridge over the Iowa River. They were driving a lot of cattle over at one time, and the bridge collapsed, and then many of them were killed and drowned. There used to be, when the river was at high stage like this, there was a fellow named Bummy Kozturka who used to dive off the bridge, and first they passed the hats, then he'd dive off the bridge and swim over the dam. Once he did it, he thought the river was a little too low, and there was always a suction to pull it back, and so he thought maybe he had better do it that day, and someone told him he was yelling, and he did it, and he drowned. Never did that. It was always quite a thrill. Not very many people ever went over the dam in canoe. My friend Tom Roach and I, the one I went to Keokuk with, we thought it would be a big thrill to go over the dam in canoe, and we studied it for 3 or 4 days, just how we do. We knew we'd upset it. The voice cleared, and then the water receded a little bit. We didn't do it. Actually, I think we chickened out. At least we had the thrill of talking about it anyhow. And that's the first Iowa Avenue Bridge, called the Centennial Bridge, built in 1876, because that was the centennial. And it was there until 1916. You can see Old Capitol in the distance. That real tall building to the right, real tall, is the College of Medicine, built in 1886, I believe it was. And the Benny Chimney building between it and the Old Capitol was South Hall. There were 20 chimneys on that, and that was built in 1870. It served just about every college on the campus when it got started. And this is one of the high pictures of skating on the Iowa River. The picture was taken by Professor Rockwood before the turn of the century from the Iowa Avenue Bridge. That's the Burlington Street Bridge in the distance. And you see how many people were skating in those days. Today, because of the dam at McBride, water being warm and never freezing solid, they don't skate anymore. But I remember we used to skate all the way up to Coralville and back, and it was a great sport. That's the Iowa Avenue Bridge. Was put in 1916. Of course, the College of Nursing was later than that. Originally, there was a house on the top of that by an Iowa City attorney, beautiful house. This is it here. It's right on the crest of the hill. Pleasant Arthur was his son, was his father-in-law. He ran the first ferry over the Iowa River up there on Iowa Avenue Bridge. This is an aerial picture of all the bridges. That first one is the Ryerson Bridge, just as it was being replaced by the Benton Street Bridge. Not this present Benton Street Bridge, but one before that. And then you can see the Rock Island Bridge and then 2 smokestacks up above. Old Capitol clear off to the right. And this is I call it the Tom Turner House. I don't know if Mr. Turner is still living, but is he? Yeah, well anyhow, this is the Tom Turner House. Originally that was built by a man named Dr. Kimball. and it's incorporated. The log cabin is kept in perfect masonry. The log cabin is the room to the right downstairs. I've been in the basement. I've seen the logs that were in that house. Well, anyhow, when they built the house, they incorporated the log cabin. He lived there, and later the priest, the Lord's family was there. But when Dr. Kimball, a horticulturist, lived there, his mother died in 1870, just before New Year's. They had the funeral at this house. They buried her in Oakland Cemetery, which was just behind here. And the next day, the sexton looked at the grave and he thought it had been tampered with, but he decided he must just be imagining it. The grave was somewhere near where the Black Angel is today. You know, the Black Angel wasn't there then. But he looked the second day and he was really concerned, so he got something to look at it. And they decided that there was something wrong, so the grave was open. And sure enough, Mrs. Harriet's body had been robbed. Yeah, there's a Black Angel. That's Harriet's grave was somewhere close to that. So the grave was robbed, and immediately the finger of suspicion pointed at the anatomy department of the newly organized College of Medicine. That was in this building. Those windows are broken not because of that, but because of a hailstorm. But anyhow, they got a warrant. Oh, the whole state was in an uproar over it. They were found to be true why the College of Medicine was doomed. There wouldn't have been any. Well, anyhow, they got the warrant to search it, but they couldn't serve the warrant till after New Year's for some reason. I think that was a ruse. Well, in the meantime, they'd given them enough time, and they'd taken Mrs. Harriet's body and hid it under a haystack 3 miles west of town. Well, as I say, there were editorials in all the papers. Everybody was in an uproar. The family were very distressed. Finally, they said, "Well, if we will put a casket out in back of the Metropolitan Building." Now, that's the Metropolitan Building burning. This fire had nothing to do with it. And the funeral director was in this building, and they said he will put a casket out in back of his mortuary, and if the body is returned there between 20 minutes of midnight and 20 minutes after midnight, there will be no prosecution. The body was returned, there was no prosecution. It's a hair-raising story, but it is true. That fire, incidentally, that building was there until the Jefferson was built in 1911 and finished in 12. And it was probably the best downtown building in Iowa City. The Stewart Shoe Store was in that building, the same Stewart Shoe Store that we have today. And the top floor was a knitting mill, and at the end, originally it had been a hall. And oh yes, Mark Twain was here in 1869, and he lectured on the 3rd floor of that building. But later it was a knitting mill, and they made duck claws, and they had oil up there. A barrel of oil exploded, and that's how the building caught fire. I remember I was out at the 900 block, and I heard the explosion and the smoke, and we all ran all the way down and saw this fire. And for 5 men in Iowa City, they were planning a new hotel with Jefferson. They didn't know where to put it. Feeney and Kemley, they had the brewery. George Carson, who had that beautiful house on Alpha Phi Sorority House on College Street, was one of them. Judge Otto was one of them. And Monchu, the funeral director. So 5 of them wanted to put up this hotel. They couldn't decide where to put it, so they stood across the street and watched the fire, and they said, "Now we know where we'll put our hotel." So the Jefferson was built there.